You ever have one of those mornings where the universe decides to yank the rug out from under your feet, just when you're sure nothing can touch your peace? That's how it started for me. The morning the cops showed up to kick me off my own lake. No, really my own damn lake, the one my granddad dug out with his bare hands back in '72. I was just sitting there in the early mist, rod in hand, thinking about nothing much except how smooth the water was when I heard that unmistakable crunch of tires on gravel. Then a car door slamming. And suddenly, there she was. Diane Pritchard, our delightful HOA president, pointing at me like she'd just caught Bigfoot raiding her bird feeder. "Officer, that man is trespassing on community property." Yeah, that happened. That's when I realized this wasn't about fishing. It was about power, about someone trying to steal what my family built just because they thought they could. Let me back up a sec because it all really started 6 weeks before that showdown. It was a Saturday, one of those perfect mornings where the sun slips through the trees, just so, mist curling off the water like the world's waking up slow. This lake was my ritual, a kind of therapy, you know? Ever since I'd moved back after Grandpa passed, every weekend I was there at 6 sharp. Coffee, old rod, nothing but the sound of birds and my own thoughts. Been fishing that shore since I was 8, listening to Grandpa's stories about building things that last, fighting for what matters. He bought those 12 acres back in '67, pennies on the dollar, then spent years turning wild land into something beautiful. 3 acres of water surrounded by willow trees he'd planted himself. It wasn't just a lake. It was his way of loving us, building something for the next generation. Even now, decades later, I'd sit and watch the blue herons land, spot salamanders darting in the mud, and remember why this place mattered. Things changed when Riverside Meadows popped up in '98, 150 look-alike houses, fresh painted fences, an HOA that cared more about grass height than common sense. They tried to buy out Grandpa more than once, but he wouldn't budge. Barrett property, he'd say, and it stays that way. So the lake stayed private, ours, even as the neighborhood swallowed everything else. My wife Natalie and I, she's an environmental lawyer, sharp as a tack, had built our life around this place. She'd left her job in the city, set up her own practice here, and found a rhythm. Peace, I thought, until one day, I spotted it, a new sign on the property line. Brand new metal, bold letters, private HOA property. No trespassing. I figured it was a mix-up, some admin screw-up. So I strolled over, checked it out. The sign was fresh, posts hammered in deep, somebody meant business. A chill ran through me, and it wasn't just the morning air. Thing is, 3 months back, I'd gotten a letter from the HOA. Annual lake access fee, $850. I tossed it, sure it was a mistake. The lake was ours. I had the deed, the tax records, survey maps going back to Nixon. So why the sign? Why now? That's when I noticed her, standing up on the road, camera in hand, blonde hair pulled back tighter than a drum. She was taking pictures, me, the lake, everything. Our eyes met. She didn't flinch, didn't even look away. Just lifted the camera and snapped another shot. Message received. You're being watched. Not 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, straight to voicemail. This is Diane Pritchard, HOA president. You're trespassing on community property. Remove yourself or we'll take action. No wiggle room. I looked at that lake, the willows, the whole world Grandpa built from nothing, and realized peace was about to be a memory. Next thing I knew, that Mercedes rolled up to my house. Diane in a cream blazer, 2 flunkies in tow, a nervous guy named Greg, and a woman who barely looked up from her shoes. They moved like a boardroom SWAT team, scripts rehearsed. "Mr. Barrett, we need to discuss your unauthorized use of community property." Not a question, like it was already settled. I told him straight. The lake's been Barrett property for 50 years. Greg fumbled out a map, bright blue highlight, community lake stamped right over my land. The lines were wrong. Legal boundaries redrawn, my entire lake claim for the HOA. Diane didn't blink. "You'll need to prove that, won't you?" she said, all business. Then she handed me a violation notice, $500 fine, plus 6 years back fees, $5,100. You have 48 hours, she said, or we take legal action. As she turned to leave, she threw one last threat over her shoulder. 8 families in escrow, all expecting lake access. If this isn't resolved, you'll ruin it for everyone. There it was. Not about boundaries or rules, about money. Pure and simple. I watched them drive off, the violation notice heavy in my hand, and knew right then this wasn't going away with a friendly chat. I found Natalie in her office, told her what happened. Her lawyer brain clicked into gear fast. This is fraud, she said. They're literally redrawing property lines. We spent hours digging out Grandpa's paperwork. Deeds, maps, tax records, every scrap proving the lake was always ours. But something nagged at me. Diane was too confident, too sure. She wasn't acting like someone bluffing. So I started thinking like a biologist facing an invasive species. Cameras around the lake, night vision, audio. If they made a move, I wanted proof. Next morning, I went back to the lake, folder full of documents tucked under my arm. I sat in my usual spot, except this time I was jumpy. The air was different, every sound loud, every shadow suspicious. That's when the patrol car rolled in, lights off but still official as hell. Officer Holbrook stepped out, young but sharp, boots crunching down to the water. Diane's white Mercedes was up on the road, phone out, recording every second. Officer Holbrook was polite, even-handed, said he had a call about trespassing. Could we talk? I handed him the folder. He went over it, taking his time. These look legitimate, he said, but he'd need to verify. I could feel Diane's camera on me the whole time. She was building a case, brick by brick. That's when Diane herself stormed down, heels biting into the dirt, folder in hand, insisting I'd been warned, showing her own proof. The officer took her documents, weighed them against mine, and did something I'll always respect. He played it straight. This is a civil property dispute, he told her. Without clear evidence of criminal trespass, I can't arrest anyone. He looked at me, apologetic but fair. Submit your documents to the county, let them decide. In the meantime, don't come back until it's sorted. He handed me his card. Diane's eyes practically glowed with satisfaction. She whispered as I passed, "You should have just paid the fee, Wade. This is going to cost you so much more." Real personal, like she knew my whole story already. I went home, called Natalie. "They called the cops," I said, voice tight. "This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a setup." She didn't hesitate, told me not to go near the lake, not to give Diane more ammo. "She's building a harassment case, Wade. We need a strategy." We spent the next morning buried in the county recorder's office. Old paper, dust, that smell of official truth. Every record backed us up. 12 acres, 3-acre lake, all Barrett property. Tax records, survey maps, airtight. We found something else, too. Diane had been collecting $850 lake access fees from 47 households since she took over as president. Nearly $240,000 over 6 years. Money she'd never have to give back if she pulled this off. Not just fraud, organized theft. I set up more cameras, checked in with my elderly neighbor. He'd lived here since the beginning. He pulled out old newsletters, showed me the headline for Diane's first year as president. Exciting news. Lake access. Folks questioned it, he said, but Diane was ruthless, threatened lawsuits until they backed down. "Keep this," he said, handing me the newsletter. "You'll need it." A couple days later, my wildlife cameras caught them, Diane and Greg, sneaking down at night to plant that no trespassing sign. I had video, audio, her saying once we secure the lake, values jump 20%. That's my commission. Greg was worried. Diane just laughed. "We'll bury him in legal fees." That's how this works. Chilling stuff. Armed with all that, Natalie and I took it to a property attorney. He reviewed everything, took off his glasses, looked me straight in the eye. "You've got them cold. Civil and criminal action both." We sent a cease and desist, prepared a civil suit, and handed the fraud evidence to the DA. Diane fired back with propaganda. Newsletter headlines, social media groups, photos of me trespassing, twisting the story until neighbors started harassing me. "Get out before we make you leave." Threats, slurs, the works. Natalie documented every bit for our lawyer. The DA's investigator subpoenaed the HOA's financials. Not only had Diane raked in the lake fees, but $45,000 went to her husband's company for consulting, money that vanished in a thin air. When the treasurer and secretary were questioned, they folded. Diane had threatened them, forced them to falsify records, cover up everything. It was all there, emails, receipts, the lot. The investigator's words, "This isn't just fraud anymore. This is organized embezzlement." Charges came fast: fraud, embezzlement, harassment. The neighborhood exploded. Residents demanded their money back. The social media mobs went silent, and Diane's allies started bailing. At the emergency HOA meeting, the treasurer and secretary finally spoke up, admitted everything. My neighbor, who'd known Grandpa, stood and said, "That lake was never ours." Diane was voted out 156-3. 2 days later, she was arrested, cameras flashing, sunglasses on, her husband bailing her out but filing for divorce within the week. The civil trial was brutal. 8 days, packed courtroom. I told the story of Grandpa digging the lake, showed photos from every decade. Diane took the stand, tried to play the victim, but when the jury saw the security footage, her own words about burying me, they were done. Verdict: liable on all counts. Over $8 million in damages, restitution, punitive. The HOA went bankrupt, property values tanked. Diane lost everything: her house, her license, her reputation. She pled guilty, did 18 months in prison. Even her husband skipped town. But in the end, it wasn't about the money. The morning after the dust settled, I sat on the shore. Same spot, same rod, the lake peaceful as ever. Mist rising, sun catching the water, salamanders thriving. The lake was officially protected, state conservation guidelines in place. No one could ever touch it again. The neighborhood changed, too. New HOA board, full transparency, ethics committee, public meetings. Folks who once sent me hate mail now apologized, some even volunteering for the Barrett Family Lake Conservation Program I started. Kids from local schools came out to learn about salamanders. Families picnicked along the shore on Lake Day. We used the settlement to restore the house, endow scholarships, fund legal aid for others fighting HOA abuse. The people who'd helped us found their own peace. Our attorney, the DA's investigator, even Officer Holbrook, now promoted to sergeant. Diane? She faded into memory, a cautionary tale, alone in a women's prison, her old allies gone. One morning, as the sun crested the willows, Natalie sat beside me with coffee. Our daughter Maya curled in my lap. "You seem lighter," Natalie said. And it was true. The fight had made me tougher, sure, but it also reminded me why some things like family, like honor, like a patch of wild water, are worth every battle scar. When Maya asked, "Did great-grandpa really build all this?" I told her the story again, letting her feel the weight of that legacy. "He did it for us," I said, "and now we take care of it." She nodded, solemn as a 5-year-old can be, then shrieked with joy as a bluegill nibbled her line. After everything, courtrooms, threats, headlines, the lake just kept on being itself. Patient, enduring, waiting for the next generation. Some things really are worth fighting for. And now, as I sit here, coffee in hand, daughter in my lap, sun sparkling on the water, I know we did right. We protected something that matters. So what do you think? Was I right to go all the way? Is there a point where standing up for what's yours crosses a line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your own stories. Where do you draw the line between community and control? And hey, if you care about justice and legacy, hit that like button and stick around for more stories like this one. Because believe me, the world's got no shortage of them.